You are listening to the Objects of Affection collection. Study 39, Marine Serre Upcycling, a New Industrial Paradigm. A critical study on eco-futurism, industrialized labor, and the end of hyperreal activism. The thesis on industrialized activism in the contemporary fashion system. Activism is often a hyperreal gesture. Fashion, through its strategic use of soft power, has mastered this simulation, presenting ideological shopfronts where the sign of change, a slogan on a t-shirt, a fleeting greenwashed campaign, is consumed as a replacement for the difficult, material act of change. This is Baudrillard's ecstasy of signs. The real more real than the real, where the authentically artificial gesture of sustainability becomes a form of amusement that manipulates the collective mind without altering the material base of production. This study posits that the French designer Marine Serre represents a far more radical and structurally significant model. She is the central test case for a critical 21st century question. Is it possible to scale an authentic, activist-led philosophy to an industrial level, or does the act of scaling inevitably corrupt the artisan ethos? This thesis argues that Marine Serre has successfully engineered a new savoir-faire rooted in process rather than publicity. The hyperreal is by nature frictionless. It is an effortless simulation. Serre's model, in stark contrast, recenters friction and difficulty as the very measure of its authenticity, aligning with the philosophical mandate of the aesthetics of endurance. Her activism is not a word but an action. It is not a superficial sign but a labor-intensive, complex and complicated industrial reality. By examining her philosophy of eco-futurism, her regenerative supply chain, and her acts of radical transparency, this study defines her as the first true model of a scalable artisan-as-industrialist. The philosophy of eco-futurism and gentle protest defining eco-futurism. A dystopian realism. Marine Serre's philosophical framework is eco-futurism. This concept functions as a systemic revolution against the fashion industry's obsession with disposable newness by rooting itself in the regeneration of old garments. Crucially, Serre's vision is not a digital fantasy. It must be reborn from past stories and built from the scraps of the old world. It is a materialist realism focused on repair, directly confronting the crisis of the ephemeral. Pillar 1, a radical call for love. The conceptual protest to Serre's philosophy was born from a real-world crisis. Her 2017 LVMH prize-winning graduate collection, Radical Call for Love, was her first act of gentle protest. The collection was a direct visual comment conceived in response to the tragic events in Paris and Brussels in 2015 and 2016. This deliberate fusion of symbols and cuts established her method, using design not as escapism, but as a tool to respond to and propose solutions for immediate global crises. Pillar 2. To love is to repair, the material protest. Her fall 2023 show, Rising Shelter, presented this philosophy in its mature material form. The set was not one of luxury but of waste. Models walked against a backdrop of massive column-shaped cages filled to the brim with 3 tons of discarded clothing. These oppressive towers served as the visual anchor for an eerie voiceover repeating the mantra, "To love is to repair." This marked a critical evolution, shifting the focus from recoding symbols to regenerating substance. To love is to repair is the materialist successor to the conceptual radical call for love, confirming that her activism is not mere words but action. Part 2. The supply chain as activism. Industrializing, savoir-faire, reverse engineering as the new savoir-faire in a conventional luxury model, the supply chain is an abstracted entity. In Serre's model, the supply chain is the art, a regenerative process that serves as the structural anchor of her brand. This is the harder path. Serre's teams start with the materials, sourced from scrap warehouses and second-hand markets, and reverse engineer a design from their constraints. This labor-intensive transformation is the antithesis of mass production, directly countering the exploitation of the artistic dark matter on which the mainstream system relies. The slug's pace of authenticity, quantifying the nut. Serre's genius is not just aesthetic, designing with waste, but industrial, managing waste. She faced the problem that predecessors couldn't crack, scaling authenticity. An analysis revealed that her team can cut pieces for only 15 pairs of upcycled trousers per day, compared to 300 for a conventional brand. Serre cracked the nut not by making upcycling as efficient as mass production, but by industrializing its inherent inefficiency. She built a scalable industrial model that could financially support the slug's pace of 15, directly rejecting the volume and velocity that causes systemic exhaustion. Hard drive as radical transparency bypassing the runway. The exhibition as proof if Serre's process is her activism, her fall 2022 hard drive exhibition was her proof. In an act of radical transparency, she bypassed a conventional, exclusionary runway show to stage an ultimate, behind-the-scenes experience where the public could witness artisans performing the creation, production, and regeneration processes in real time. This was a profound philosophical statement, rejecting the superficial aspects of fashion to place human action at the center of transformation. The semiotic pivot, from symbol to index. This exhibition was a masterful semiotic maneuver. In the logic of logomania, Serre's ubiquitous crescent moon appears to be just another logo. By contrast, she proved that her logo is not an arbitrary symbol of activism. It is an indexical sign, pairs, with a direct causal link to a structurally anchored material reality. By publicly displaying the fire, the labor-intensive process, she validates the smoke, the crescent moon. This act of radical transparency collapsed the hyperreal simulation, proving her commitment to narrative over price. The thesis on the artisan-as-industrialist Marine Serre's work is a systemic revolution in progress. She has successfully engineered a scalable model of artisan activism, which is a literal definition of the artisan as industrialist. By choosing the more challenging path of regeneration, she has solved the problem that stymied predecessors. She has cracked that nut of industrializing a gentle protest. She achieved this by building an industrial system capable of supporting inefficiency, making the slug's pace and couture-level attention the very source of her brand's value. Marine Serre demonstrates that the future of value lies not in fleeting, hyperreal signs, but in the tangible, structurally anchored action of repair. Her successful creation of a post-luxury conceptual functional art model at an industrial scale makes her a definitive figure in the movement. Authored by Christopher Banks, anthropologist of luxury and critical theorist. Office of Critical Theory and Curatorial Strategy. Objects of Affection Collection. This has been a study from the Objects of Affection Collection, a critical art research institution operating under the framework of post-luxury conceptual functional art. Read the full research at objectsofaffectioncollection.com.